Hello, Rena.
Hey, Dr. Bach. Good to see you.
It is very good to see you. Welcome, everyone, to a free association conversation, a free market association conversation between Rena K and myself, Dr. Bach Ho. We're both organic intelligence coaches. We help people reduce suffering and increase capacity to handle more in life with ease using the protocols of organic intelligence. In these live stream free association conversations, Rena and I try to aim both at people who are completely new to organic intelligence and to my channel, and people who already know at least a little about organic intelligence and have watched some of my content. We try to find the balance. Today, our topic is towards working tax free. Tax returns are due tomorrow in the States. Taxation is theft. Tariffs are taxes. Tariffs are theft. Both the political right and the political left are wrong to tax us. Government should be financed purely voluntarily, peacefully, and freely through various possible ways. For example, if you want to sue your surgeon for a botched boob job, if you want to make use of the courts, you pay. If you want the cops to help you recover your stolen piano, you pay. Just as if you want to eat at a restaurant, you pay and probably tip your server. We're not required to tip those who serve us, but we do. Now, you may claim that taxation is not theft because we consent to the ways of a country in virtue of freely choosing to live in that country. My question to you would be, is that premise the premise that you consent to the ways of a country in virtue of freely choosing to live in that country, a premise you've thought through as opposed to just accepting based on feeling? Or is the work of thinking through your ideas, is that work to taxing? Which brings us to our main topic. In the context of organic intelligence, I'm using tax to mean a tax on your biology or organism, an expense or demand on you. For example, I may have just taxed you right now. I opened with political remarks, which may have been off-putting to you, especially if you believe in taxes, which almost everyone does. And then I pivoted suddenly from politics to organic intelligence, to how I understand taxation in the context of organic intelligence as a tax or expense on your biology or organism. That sudden topic pivot may have been jarring to you, taxing to you. We want to live, work, and play tax free. Rena, do you agree 100% with everything I just said?
I love the intensity with which you opened. You
Oh,
said
thank
you,
you.
yeah,
Thank
you
you.
said you're going to open with fireworks and why not,
Why
Uh,
not?
and at the same time, to be able to acknowledge that there can be people for whom even the conversation is taxing, to have that kind of conversation, especially around things that we're just used to, right? And issues around taxation, private funding, all those kinds of things. Yeah, like who actually really thinks of those things? Because it's just so ingrained in our system. We're born in it, and so that's what we're used to. And to actually think about all of it, right, and make consideration, it can be challenging because most people cannot see an alternative, and you are actually presenting the alternative, and the alternative is some form of private um, use or sharing of resources for goods that we want. And I'm all for private markets. And you said we, want to have a free market conversation.
Free market conversation.
Yeah, not that I know not that I'm seeing a whole lot of free market money coming my way in these conversations. We're for the most part just having the conversations for the fun of it, and the experience of it, and also because we appreciate, like, we actually want to share this content. We want people to know that there is a tax-free way of engaging in their lives, and that the doing what needs to be done, not only does it not have to, but really it's not in your best interest to tax the biology to try to get it to produce certain things, unless it's right on the edge. So that gets into what is a tax. And you use the phrase like a demand on the biology, some kind of expense on the biology. So that's the idea that there's a certain amount of energy and somehow it is decreasing the energy long term, right? It's somehow taking away from the biology, as opposed to maybe short term taking energy, but then you get enough back in energy. So when I do these conversations with you, it takes energy to do, and yet I get enough back, and so much back just in the experience of it and the enjoyment of it, that it's not an expense or a demand on the biology. And so that's really kind of what we're looking for, is to be able to have lives where, yes, there's energy utilized. Of course, it takes energy just to breathe, right? But the energy that we receive in life matches or exceeds the demands on the biology.
I felt the impulse to get into examples to concretize our discussion. Thanks for your remarks. We're trying to introduce the idea of how to live tax free, and we're explicating that so far as living in a way where you're not being drained over time, whether intensely and quickly or over time slowly, where you actually gain energy. And I wanted to, from an organic intelligence perspective, there are many, many taxes on our biology in day-to-day living. And I wanted to give examples just to give us a flavor, because I think the examples are interesting. So, or we're thinking about, in normal social etiquette, eye contact can be very taxing. We're told, make eye contact with people, don't look away. Looking at people in the eyes can be very taxing to your biology. Having someone look at you in the eyes can be taxing. I'm just going to give off some examples, more examples. You're going to meet someone for lunch, and you may already be thinking, I know them, they're going to straight away ask me, how are you? What have you been up to? Catch me up. And the moment you meet them at the cafe or the restaurant, they're going to immediately ask you, how are you? What have you been up to? And they'll launch many questions like that. And you already feel a taxation in your biology leading up to that. And then when your friend does ask, how are you? What have you been up to? That's taxation. And then you begin to answer, and then your friend says, oh, that's good, that's bad, nothing that can be taxation. So taxation is really everywhere. And when we get refined in our own felt sense as we live through life, we see just how much we're burdened by taxation. I thought examples would be helpful because people will find that interesting, I hope. Like, wow, there is taxation everywhere.
Right. Well, and I mentioned in what I was saying, that the act of breathing, the act of metabolizing food and utilizing and assimilating it, all of that requires energy. And so on some level, you could say that that's taxing on the system. And yet sometimes, the goal with breathing and eating and all the things that we do to support biological functioning is that the energy we gain is greater than the energy taken to digest, assimilate, utilize that food. And so in the same way, eye contact, depending on the culture and depending on what we've learned, and then just depending on our temperament and our experiences, may or may not be taxing on the biology, because one may get more out of that in the exchange than it takes to tax their biology. Right.
Thank you. Sorry, I insist on interrupting. I apologize, half apologize. Thank you for correcting me. My example was parochial, and so this is highly context dependent. Eye contact is not per se intensifying unpleasantly or taxing. Sorry. Please
right.
continue.
And it is context dependent. And that's a little bit what we are frequently naming, is that it really depends on where the biology is in that moment. And what is the current state that is there? And we're wanting to increasingly do those things that support the overall state so it doesn't get increasingly taxed. So you gave a couple of really good examples, right? If I can give an example, right? The idea that you're at a sports game, right? And everybody's cheering and super excited. And matter of fact, strangers next to you are bumping into you and hitting your elbows, and somebody puts their hand on your shoulder, and you're sitting there going, why are these people touching me? I don't want this. This doesn't feel good. How dare they do that, right? All of that would be, well, in that moment, that state, that biology, that's taxing, because there's no good feeling to it. Whereas another biology in that same moment could be just like a little bit sick, right? They've had a cold recently, and now they're realizing, wow, I thought I was better, but the noise is a little bit much, and people jostling me, that's too much, right? So that could be a very temporary thing. Or it could be that your biology is super really into it and you're high-fiving people and you're excited too. And the fact that people touch you or in your space, or like that's part of the game. It's kind of fun, actually, right? And so where the biology is, how taxing something is, depends upon where the biology is in any given moment.
Yes. I like our run with examples, because I think one idea in organic intelligence is that feeling untaxed, feeling comfortable, feeling at ease, feeling tax-free may be unfamiliar to many people if their norm is to feel taxed and they think that what they feel is what is tax-free. So I think for many people, the norm of your internal experience is there is a constant preoccupation. It may not be intense. You're not having a panic attack. You don't feel stressed out and you don't feel like you have to move around to feel better. And you're not having any clear gross emotion, gross in the sense of non-subtle, like extreme anger, extreme irritation, or extreme sadness, or panic or stress. But there's a constant preoccupation, like thoughts running there a little bit that are just draining, a little bit draining and taxing, or even just sitting in a meeting or sitting with friends or sitting with family at a dinner table at a restaurant, all the energy being used to adjust yourself socially or adjust yourself in the chair or navigate social conversations to, oh, someone asked this, I need to avoid that topic, let me go over here. But you do that all the time, so it's normal to you, so you think that's your baseline of comfort, when in fact that could already be a highly taxed situation.
Yeah.
And true ease would be marked, the sign of being untaxed in a given moment, according to organic intelligence, would be that your attention could easily reside in the immediate environment. You can see what's around you in a relaxed, unfocused way, or hear what's around you, because that means that your attention is not being preoccupied with internal thoughts and feelings and with a lot of demands in the environment. The biology will automatically try to just connect to the environment through the senses if it's not taxed. And that connection to the environment is called orientation. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and to add to that is that when the biology has some capacity to also feel like something is enjoyable. So one of the pithy phrases that Steve will use, and this could require a little bit of nuance, but for now, let's just say this, that, if it's not enjoyable, it's over threshold. And so, in the example you give about being at the family dinner, if it's taking that much energy to manage how your internal state is, or to make sure that you feel okay, then that means the engagement in itself is unable to be enjoyable. Not only are you not able to orient,
Yeah.
but it's not enjoyable. And in that moment, you might choose to do that, even though knowing it's going to be over threshold. So people choose to go to family events, even though they know it's taxing on them. At the same time, it's possible for the biology to organize in such a way that either not going is an easy choice. There's no guilt, there's no shame. It's just like, well, why would I do that? Right. Or going is somehow, there's some kind of enjoyment that can be achieved and experienced in that process. And so those are both orientation and pleasure can be barometers of
Yeah.
whether or not the activity is taxing to us, or whether or not it is requiring of effort, but that is not taxing.
I'm digging this analogy of the organic intelligence focus on orientation and pleasure, the analogy to being tax free. In Okay, so in the beginning of this talk, live stream, free association conversation, I said almost everyone supports taxes. Going back briefly to the political sense, almost everyone supports taxes. A small minority, the heroic minority, in my view, don't. But so almost everyone supports taxes in the financial sense, in the political sense. Likewise, in mainstream therapy, mainstream coaching, mainstream attitudes towards growth, professional development, productivity optimization, the mainstream actually supports taxation also, taxation of the biology. You're in discomfort. Here, okay, here an army of dialectical behavior therapy clinicians come at you. Here are 50 skills. Okay, try breathing. Okay, try exercise. Okay, try thought monitoring. Okay, try going for a walk, try dancing, try talking to someone, reach out to someone, journal your feelings. So here are 50 things to do, which are demanding. They're taxing. Taking an inhale is taxing. Writing down your thoughts and trying to combat them with positive antidote thoughts, that's taxation. And that is recommended. And when you do them, you do feel better afterward. But but there's something sly here, because you will eventually feel better anyway. You were not stuck in discomfort forever. So you get into these mind games of it, you tend to think, oh, what I did actually helped, when in fact you could have just felt better by doing nothing or doing something else. Then you tend to think that the particular skill you used was actually helpful because you just did it and then you felt better when you would have felt better anyway. And it may be that the skill you used jacked up discomfort so high that that triggered the biology to relax a bit, because your discomfort reached too high of a threshold. So the pro-tax attitude of mainstream therapy does yield positive results later on, in part because it's guaranteed to, because we don't suffer forever. We will feel better. But it habituates us to taxing ourselves. Oh, taxes are good. Financially, taxes are good. And then in my living, taxing myself is good, because making myself uncomfortable leads to making myself comfortable. And you have all the attitudes of do what's hard, do what's painful, do what you're afraid of, do what's uncomfortable, do what's stressful. And that's how you'll grow. Tax yourself, more tax. Oh, you're feeling too stressed from taxation because you worked out too much, and now do some deep breathing. That's more taxation. So just tax yourself. And the way to glory is to tax yourself. I may be exaggerating and misrepresenting the mainstream, but that's just what I'm doing. But they're pro-tax, and we're not.
And it's an interesting thing because one of the things that I said at the beginning too, in response to your opening, was that most people do not realize there's an alternative,
Yeah.
right? If they knew that there's an alternative. So when I tell people that it's possible to feel better by feeling better, that that's actually a better way to go versus taxing oneself. When people hear that, intuitively they go, well, that's cool. Yes, I would like that. That's preferable. Most people will
Yeah.
see that as preferable, but it's never occurred to them that it's possible. And part of what we're doing in organic intelligence is trying to show people that it is possible for the biology to grow and heal. Actually, it's possible for that to happen in a much more to use the name, organic, right? Like automatic. We use the word auto organize a lot. There's a way to set the biology up so that it will automatically do that growth for us, that we don't have to, like ourselves, we talked about last time, we don't have to push ourselves and use force or coercion to make ourselves
Mm,
better people.
mm,
Right. And so, and I know you would argue you don't have to use force and coercion to make society better. Right. So there is a fractal here of this, that if we want to, we do want to support our biology feeling better, by feeling better, because that's going to give us the biggest results and be the least taxing on the system. So it won't have future drain on the system. But
yeah.
the best thing about that is that it sets the biology up to do its own natural, innate, growing kind of thing. And it's like to be able to come into alignment with that nice rhythm that allows for the growth. That's the way we want to go. So, if you're sick, like if you watch a dog and a dog gets sick, that dog goes and hides under the bed and might not come out for a couple of days. It doesn't eat, it doesn't want to go outside to poop. It just hangs out, and it's
Yeah.
sleeping, it's quiet, right? And so, many of us, we get sick and we try to do all the things, right? We keep trying to go to work, we keep trying to, do all the parenting things we need to do. We keep trying to go work out even though we're sick, all these things. It's like, oh, but the biology is already telling you it's taxed. It's too much. There needs to be some rest and downtime so the biology can catch up with itself, right? Because if the biology
Right.
is taxed, it's behind the eight ball. It's drained, and there's a need to rebuild energy stores. And so in organic intelligence, we talk about the importance of increased ways of allowing the biology to rest, so that the stores in our biology can come back into, fully, being full, right? Because
Yeah.
once our energy stores are full, and as they become increasingly full, then it takes more to drain them. If the reservoir is only at 20% and there's a big wildfire, then it doesn't take much to use up that 20% of the water. But if the reservoir is at 100% or 120%, like overflowing a little bit, and they got room for that,
Yeah.
then when the fire comes, there's plenty of resources for it. And that's the same thing with our own biology. That when we've been allowing things to be at the right pacing, the right intensity, that has, more positively valence experience, so it feels better. Like when that happens, the reserves grow, the water in the reservoir grows in the amount, so that when things come along in life that would typically be taxing, there is sufficient reserve for them.
Yes. Thank you. And cutting taxes should not be done wholesale and immediately down to zero. So, in putting my capitalist objectivist Ayn Rand hat on for a moment, we're not advocating that. I mean, it's not going to happen realistically anyway. But even if it could, even if I could, if I control the government, it wouldn't be okay. By midnight at the end of today, no, cut all taxes to zero. It'd have to be graduated because of how high the taxes are and how complex the political machine is. So just slowly, we're slowly going to work our way towards cutting taxes gradually and then increasing, for example, pay for service or government lotteries or whatever, over time aiming at zero taxes and then replacing it with the peaceful, non-violent, hello Buddhists, do no harm, the non-violent means of financing. Likewise, in the biology, the organic intelligence, living life biology case, if you're habituated already to taxing yourself intensely and living near burnout, or you swing between burnout and a lot of energy, high energy burnout, high energy burnout, we're not advocating immediately relax fully, do nothing, go to a park, listen to the birds, and look at the trees, because it's not possible. You'll go crazy. So it would be graduated. I'm not even sure if I'm using that word, gradated or something. But anyway, so orientation, for example, connecting to the environment may be too hard, or maybe too hard. It may be too hard in nature. You try to go to a park and you try to look at trees, and it's just unnerving, irritating, boring, or some combination of that. Actually, Rena, you once asked me, how would you get someone to orient? And I said, half jokingly, I instinctively just replied, go to Las Vegas. And I think back to that example. It's not an answer I've heard any organic intelligence person say, but I meant it when I said it may be that if you go to Vegas, the intensity of what's around you, because all the lights, all the motion, all the activity, all the slot machines, everything geared toward getting your attention out there, all the neon signs, everything, that it would take that much to get you to orient. So that could be maybe your first step, not literally Vegas, maybe, but figure just some substitute where going to Vegas would be an example in your case of being able to orient. It takes Vegas. You can't orient. You're not at the point where you can orient to a peaceful park or a white blank wall. That would be super advanced orientation. But you can orient to the intensity of Las Vegas. If you're used to doing high intensity interval training, and if you skip a high intensity interval training workout, you'll go crazy. You have to do it, then do it. And then maybe when you're walking out of the gym in the 45 seconds it takes you to get from the door to your car, you can try to orient a little bit or just feel a little bit more chill. Or when you park before you go to the gym and you walk into the gym, just see if you can note some kind of ease before you do your high intensity. Just we're looking for tiny possible moments of relaxation. It's not deregulate, detox all at once. It's over time. You will get to a free market. You will get to a free biology.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's not our job to try to deregulate our own biology.
I'm sure all the organic intelligence coaches and the organic intelligence community are fully in support of our analogy of biological organization to increasing free markets in the political economy. I pivoted you away in the beginning of this talk. You talked about, instead of using energy in a way that drains us, we want to use energy in a way that gives us more energy. I felt that was important. I wanted to continue, but I pivoted away to give examples of what it means to be tax-free. But would you be able to return to that and give at least one example of what does it look like to use energy in a way that drains me, and what does it look like to use energy in a way that gives me more energy, just so we have a concrete sense of that?
Yeah, I'm thinking, I'm going to play off an example we have used before. So I play the cello, I practice the cello, and some days I have, like, I can practice for 2 hours or 3 hours, and I wish I had more time. And then other times, like 10 minutes is like, oh my gosh, I can, I'm just having a hard time doing this. If I were a professional musician and making my living off of that, I might find ways that I would have to try to push myself through that, although even that I wouldn't necessarily recommend. But the idea is that when I finish a 2-hour practicing session, I feel it. I'll be like, whoa, that was a lot, in the sense of physically, there's a lot of demand on my biology. But if at the same time, I've been able to really enjoy, oh, this sounds better, or I work through this and now I'm able to do this more easily, or now this feels like I'm actually making music in a way, like it's not just a rote exercise of trying to get my fingers and hands and whatnot to do things. There, like something came through me in terms of musicality, or I was able to express something that felt good. All of that would come back to me. It would be feedback into my system that would be like, oh, that's really cool. If I practice and practice and practice to the point where I never got feedback of, oh, that was cool. I liked that. That was fun. That felt good. Then it would be an example of being taxed and expending energy without getting something back. But if you talk to any musician who's out performing, right, you get a jazz trio or quartet, and they're playing their hearts out, and they're exhausted, and afterward they're sweating, they're like, right, like they'll drain themselves in that moment, but man, it feels good, right? They get the joy and the enjoyment of the creating the music is what becomes the feedback back. So that's kind of, using our musical example. Same thing just in life. And sometimes it takes, like getting my dishes done may not feel like that's a big deal where I get a lot of goodness back, but I can. It's possible that I look at the pile of dishes and, I don't really want to do that. Okay, I'll do them. And it would be possible to find some enjoyment in that. But more than that, at the end, when it's done, you're like, oh, cool. Like my kitchen's really clean, and that's nice. I like that. That feels good. Right. And the whole time I really wasn't thinking of a whole lot. I was just doing the dishes, right? All of that could be ways that energy comes back to us. But sometimes these smaller examples in life are harder to notice when we're receiving from that exercise.
I think when we're in our time, but I think one idea that came up to me as you were speaking was that to do this work of freeing the biology from taxation, one thing that may have to shift over time is less reliance on rigidly set schedules and more attunement to what is easy and available in the moment. Because that's the only way to know to really feel the difference between being taxed and not being taxed, and then moving towards not being taxed over time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the impulse, and we don't really have time now, but I had the impulse to ask you about your experience and how you did this, because you were very intentional about paying attention to your experience and whether you wanted to do it, didn't want to do it, whether this was too much, too little. Is this the next impulse? Is that the next impulse? You got very intentional about that. And so maybe at some point we can talk about that in more detail so that people could get
Yeah.
more examples of what that looks like.
I like that. Off the cuff, we can refine the topic when we talk privately, but the idea would be depicting applying organic intelligence and giving deep, nuanced details about what it looks like internally, what I'm doing with my consciousness and attention as I try to apply it moment to moment. That'd be a good topic for us.
Yep.
Okay.
I think we've both done that
Yeah, right.
greater and lesser success. Yeah, like we've been doing that, and it could be very helpful for people to hear more specifically. You and I are very different people. Although we could probably bring somebody else in and they would have even a different way of doing it because that's more in tune with their biology, right? And so, it might be worth doing.
Yeah, let's keep it that. All right, my lovely viewers, if you're tired of the political left and tired of the political right, try up, try objectivism, try Ayn Rand, try capitalism. If you're tired of top-down therapy or bottom-up therapy, let's feel your sensations, try organic intelligence. It's orthogonal to that. It's a paradigm shift. It's find ease now and orientation, which is everything. I hope you enjoyed our Free Market Association conversation, and we will see you next week. Does that sound good? Yes.